Okay, so let's do a quick recap like what we have discussed yesterday. So we discussed yesterday about the application that we gonna implement using Spring Boot, right? So three levels of learning we have seen yesterday. The first level of learning is using Spring Boot. Let us create the business applications, meaning the web MVC application. First, we will create using the Spring Boot. And next, that business application will be converted into the microservices architecture. This is what we have seen, meaning microservices architecture, we will convert. This is step 2. And the step 3 is whatever the microservices architecture we have created or we have converted, that microservices architecture will be managed with the cloud services, meaning Spring Cloud we will use and some external services we will use, some borrowed services we will use. Finally, we will maintain the microservices what we have created. This is the step 3. So step 1, we will implement the application, a web application using the Spring Web MVC and time leaf. This is the step 1. In this step 1, you learn all the Spring Boot concepts. All the Spring Boot concepts you will learn. Right? What are the concepts you will learn? I will show the content now. Then you will get an idea. But here in the step 1, we will use Spring Web MVC and you will learn a complete Spring Boot concepts here. So this Spring Web MVC implementation will take a 1 month. A 1 month it will take. And then converting the huge application into the microservices architecture. So here we will use the Spring REST. Here we will use Spring REST. So while converting to this microservices architecture, first we will even here parallelly implement the Spring REST, that is called service oriented architecture, because interviewers are asking, can you please explain me the difference between service oriented architecture and microservices architecture? So don't worry, couple of meaning most of the questions what the interviewer is asking, we will everything we will cover here. For sure we will cover here, and whatever the interview questions that we are discussing while in the session, while session is happening, that interview question definitely will help you in the interview. 200% that question will be help you, because either in the way the same question or maybe the same question in the different format can be asked. But whatever the interview questions we discussed during the session happening, those interview questions for sure you will get in the interviews, because that is a standard, that is the expectation of any interviewer from the content perspective or from the Spring Boot subject perspective. However, we will convert the Spring Boot, this application, into microservices architecture. And once the microservices architecture has been implemented, then we will manage this microservices architecture using the Spring Cloud. So we will use the various Spring Cloud provided tools or maybe the Spring Cloud provided components here. If you can see, API gateway, resilience 4J, and security, WSO2 identity server, and ELK, and Kafka, RabbitMQ, Jipkin, Grafana and Prometheus, and Eureka server, config server, all the concepts, Redis cache, all these concepts, token based security, single sign-on, all these concepts we are implementing on the microservices that we have developed in step 2. So it is a 3-step process. It is a 3-step process. 3-step learning you will do here. Okay, so what content we gonna learn? So let me show you the content. The content is, hope you are able to see, right? Let me even increase the font. So here is the content. Spring Boot 2.x content. So we'll use Spring Boot 2.x. Whatever is the latest as in today, or whatever is the latest as and so far, the latest Spring Boot we will use. The concepts are what? Spring Boot overview. So what is Spring Boot? Why Spring Boot? What advantages that we will get with the Spring Boot over the Spring? So these interview questions or these things we will discuss. Here one interview question is there. What is that interview question is? Though we have a Spring framework, why we are using or why we need to use the Spring Boot? So though we have a Spring framework, why we need to use the Spring Boot? One moment. Sorry guys. Though we have a Spring framework, why we need to use Spring Boot? That's the interview question. Okay, folks, I am telling you one more time. The prerequisite for joining this course is the Spring Core. And if you don't know Spring Core as well, I will start with the Spring Core. And Spring Core we will discuss for first 15 days, meaning first 2 weeks we'll discuss Spring Core. So whoever know the Spring Core, for them we'll discuss, they will get a little depth knowledge on Spring Core. And who don't know Spring Core, for sure they will get the knowledge on Spring Core. But prerequisite for this is the Spring Core, and then Java 8, and then of course Advanced Java. This is, I no need to mention, probably you all guys have completed or gone through this Advanced Java. So this I don't need to mention, but Spring Core is very important for this course. If you don't know Spring Core, sir, I know only Java 8 and Advanced Java. Can I attend this session? Happily, you can attend this session. Okay. So Spring Core will discuss 2 weeks of Spring Core. We'll discuss in those 2 weeks, 100% you will learn Spring Core, and that is good enough to start the Spring Boot. Okay. So this is the prerequisite. Now, let us go back and then see the Spring Boot content. Here, this is the demo 2. In demo 2, why I am presenting the Spring Boot content here, because to give you the confidence, if we spend learning the Spring Boot microservices with me, what you gonna get? That's what the confidence I would like to build you. I know probably you guys, many of you guys might not know about what I'm discussing, or few of you might know what I would like to, meaning what I'm discussing, right? Because you don't know Spring Boot 2.x. Now if I discuss about the creating the custom configurations, what you will understand, definitely you cannot understand. But though you cannot understand, why I'm discussing, because I'm giving you the importance of this Spring Boot, and what you have to learn, and where the interview questions will ask us. Maybe at the time we started the content, right, you might pay your attention. Oh, this is what we need to learn. However, see how we will write the coding, how much coding we will write also I will show. Okay, at what range you will write the code also I will show. But however, Spring Boot 2.x content, we will learn overview of the Spring Boot, right? Why the Spring Boot came and how it came, right? The journey of the Spring Boot and all we will discuss. Then features of the Spring Boot we will discuss, and we will create a simple Spring Boot project using the Spring Boot CLI, command line interface, and initializer and STS. So meaning 3 ways we can create this Spring Boot project. This is also interview question for the freshers. How many ways we can create a Spring Boot project? This is a interview question for this freshers actually. So Spring initializer, STS, and CLI, three ways we have to create. In real time, everyone will use the Spring Initializer way. Meaning we will use an IDE called STS, Spring Tool Suite is the IDE we're going to use. It is Eclipse looks like IDE. For example, see, this is the Spring Tool Suite. If you know the Eclipse, how to use the Eclipse IDE very well, then you will be easily use this STS tool. So which is a Spring Boot, meaning which is a very helpful IDE for implementing the Spring Boot applications, microservices applications, right? Because the Spring Boot related inbuilt plugins, Spring Boot related capabilities by default were there inside this IDE. If we use Eclipse, then we need to add the Spring Boot capabilities in the Eclipse. But if you use this IDE, already built-in capabilities came to develop the Spring Boot applications. For example, just I'm right clicking on it, see this new, and I can create a Spring Boot project. And also if you can see here, the symbol is Spring Boot, right? So this, see here, this symbol is the Spring Boot one. We can run the Spring Boot applications here, right? So for example, I can run this one and I can run one or more applications at a time. See this? So meaning what I'm saying is this IDE is really a nice IDE, very helpful IDE for developing the Spring Boot applications. What are the IDEs by default providing the Spring Boot capability is, one is Spring Tool Suite, second one is the IntelliJ IDE. These two IDEs are providing the default Spring Boot capabilities to develop the Spring Boot applications. So out of these two, we will use the STS, Spring Tool Suite IDE. Though we will use the Spring Tool Suite IDE to create the Spring Boot project, for example, new Spring Boot starter project, it will go to where? It will go to again this site start.spring.io. What I mean to tell you is, though we use Spring Boot, though we use the IDE to create the Spring Boot project, it again will go to this initializer and then create the project there and then download. Meaning though we use IDE, it will go to this initializer site and then create the project and then download. That means in real time, Spring Initializer is the way we will use mostly to create the Spring Boot projects. Okay, so from this Spring Boot overview, what you will understand is why the Spring Boot came into the picture, what are the advantages of the Spring Boot over the Spring, right? And why we need to go for the Spring Boot nowadays. So nowadays, why everyone is using the Spring Boot. So that idea you will get, right, with this content, first section. Next, by the discussion of this section, what you will do, by the discussion of this section, you will be able to create a Spring Boot project. Correct. You will be able to create a Spring Boot project. And once you created a Spring Boot project, for example, just for example, let me quickly create one Spring Boot project. Right now, you don't worry about, sir, you have taken something and then you created something. We didn't understood, sir. No, don't worry. Right now, don't worry about what I am doing. Don't worry. Okay, but what I would like to show you is, let's say you created one Spring Boot project. That Spring Boot project will come up with the default structure. That is the beauty of the Spring Boot. So Spring Boot project, when we create, it will come with a default structure. So that default structure we need to study. So that is an interview question. In the definition of the Spring Boot, what is Spring Boot? Spring Boot is an opinionated approach of developing the Spring web applications rapidly. That is the definition, right? So let me write the definition. What is Spring Boot? So Spring Boot is an opinionated view or opinionated approach of developing the Spring applications or developing the enterprise applications rapidly. This is the definition everywhere you can see. This is the definition everywhere you can see. Spring Boot is an opinionated approach of developing the enterprise applications rapidly. Now, what is this opinionated approach? You know, that you will understand. To understand the what is opinionated approach, to understand what is this opinionated approach, we need to study the Spring Boot built-in components. Meaning, when we create a Spring Boot project, it will give us a structure. So we need to first study the structure, because to understand the definition of Spring Boot, especially the word called opinionated. This is very, very important word to understand. If you understand the meaning of opinionated, you will understand the whole concept of the Spring Boot. Whole concept of the Spring Boot you can easily understand. But you know, to understand the word called opinionated, first we need to understand the Spring Boot project. As soon as the Spring Boot project will create, it will give us a structure like this. See this? It given structure like this, meaning form.xml file, and if you can see application.properties file, if you can see some test case given, test case execution file, and if you can see it given the application.java file. So what these files, why these files by default given by the Spring Boot project? What we will do with those files, that we will understand. And finally, we will understand the concept of the Spring Boot with this concept. Meaning, with the, by discussing this, we will understand that. Here there is one interview question. Here there is one interview question. What is that interview question? You know, see this, the first concept we are discussing about the form.xml file, right? Here one interview question we will discuss. Go there, form.xml file. Just in case I'm explaining you, most of you guys might know Maven, right? Maven has a build tool. If you don't know also, don't worry. Slowly you will understand. So if you can carefully observe here, there is a parent by parent tag is there. Okay, what I am telling you is, maybe this is little advanced concept at this moment probably, but what I am telling is, why we need to study the Spring Boot application components is, here there is an interview question called bill of materials pattern, BOM, bill of materials pattern. If you will understand the bill of materials pattern called BOM, then you will understand why Spring Boot is coming up with parent by parent tag. Every Spring Boot application is coming up with the parent by parent tag. Why it is coming up with the parent by parent tag? This is an interview question. For 2 to 3 years of experience, guys, this is the interview question. What the interview question, you know? Hey, I have a simple Maven application, simple Java based Maven application. Can you please convert into a Spring Boot application? So let me write down the question, interview question. This is very, very interview question. I have a Java Maven build application, or Java application with the Maven. You can consider. I have a Java application. I have a Java application with the form.xml file. Okay. Now the question is, what are the steps? What are the steps you will follow to convert it into a Spring Boot application? Spring Boot application. Question is very easy, right? Question is simple. I have a Java application with the form.xml file. I have a Java web application, let us assume, or Java application, whatever it is. I have a Java application with the form.xml file. What are the steps you will follow to convert it into a Spring Boot application? Question is very simple, but what is the answer we need to? That's the reason, if you understand the opinionated approach concept, This is a very beginning point for everything. If you understand this concept, then you will easily convert the application into a Spring Boot, because first you need to convert into an opinionated one. And while converting that, the approach you will follow is you will use the BOM. BOM stands for bill of material, bill of materials. So you will use the bill of materials, BOM. Sir, what is bill of materials and all? Don't worry, we will discuss everything. Everything we will discuss. You just come to my class and then relax in the class. Follow the video, follow interview questions, follow my notes. That is more than enough to get the job. I'm pretty sure. I have a lot of confidence on me, because the past lectures or the past batches, whatever I have delivered, based on those results, I'm showing my confidence basically. Okay, however, what I would like to tell you is with this discussion, see, Spring Boot application components, with this section content discussion, you will understand the meaning of opinionated approach, and also you will understand the bill of materials pattern. By understanding these two concepts, what are the benefit you will get? What are the benefit you will get is you will be easily convert any Java application into a Spring Boot application, which is an interview question. And in order to convert a Java application into any Spring Boot application, first you need to know the structure of the Spring Boot application. That structure we will study here. See here, Spring Boot starters. Very important concept. Spring Boot starters. And this is where did you seen here? Here we discussed one question. What is that question? In the first section, we discussed one interview question. What is that interview question? What are the advantages? What are the advantages of the Spring Boot over Spring? This is the question we discussed in the first section. From this first section, you will get two interview questions. One is, what are the advantages of the Spring Boot over Spring? And the next question is from here you will get is, how many ways we can create a Spring Boot project? How many ways we can create a Spring Boot project? So this is the two questions you will get. Now here see, what are the advantages of the Spring Boot over Spring is what we will discuss in the first section, right? So the advantage is what, one of the advantages is starters, Spring Boot starters. Okay, maybe this time it may be a little new word for you, most of you, but guys, understand how the content has been arranged, right, with respect to the market standard and then the interview standard. That is what you have to map. However, see, once we created the Spring Boot project, we will discuss about the Spring Boot project internal structure. So here we will discuss about Spring Boot project, internal Spring Boot project components, form.xml file, application test.java, application.properties, and application.java. Here, while discussing this application.java, discussing about this application.java will take 1 week. This is 1 week. Discussing about this simple file application.java, how many lines of code it have? 13 lines of code it have. Just 13 lines of code to discuss, it will take 1 week for us. Why 1 week, sir? Why 1 week it will take? Why 1 week it will take is, there is a beautiful interview question from the section 2 of our content. There is one beautiful interview question. So definitely this question will be asked. So what is that question is, how the Spring Boot will works internally. How the Spring Boot will works internally. Can you explain the internal working of the Spring Boot? So that internal working of the Spring Boot we will learn here with one magical annotation called @Spring Boot application, which is a magical annotation. Really, it's a magical annotation, we could say. Right? Every interviewer Definitely, if your profile is Spring Boot, by looking at your Spring Boot profile, everyone would like to ask one question for sure. What is that one question, about this magical annotation? Can you please explain me the internal flow of the Spring Boot, or how the Spring Boot will works internally? So when that question will be asked, then for the intention of the interviewer is to know the explanation about this magical annotation. You got my point, right? What he's expecting, he's just asking one question. Can you please explain me about the internals of Spring Boot? Yes, we will explain the internals of the Spring Boot. That means his intention is to get the answer about this magical annotation. Why we are saying it as a magical annotation and all, we will discuss going forward. But from here, from this content, you will get 2 interview questions. One is bill of material patterns, and second one is about this application.java, or nothing but we can say internals of the Spring Boot application. Very, 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 very important, folks. If you paid fees, assume, but if you have not attended these first 2 sections, please take your money back and don't attend. Okay, because waste of money. I repeat one more time. If you pay fee but not attended these 2 sessions, Spring Boot and then Spring Boot application components, please take your money back and then go, because there is no meaning attending the further sections, because that much of importance is this one. Section 1 and then section 2 are very, very important. Very, very important. At least this one you should have to attend and then understand. Okay. Now, next, once after we understood these components, right? Then there is a Spring Boot application packaging internals. Very, 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 very important. Here see, Spring Boot application packaging internals. Here, go back to our architecture diagrams. See, these are the architecture diagrams. I believe you are able to see the screen. If not, just let me know. I will try to move it to somewhere, drag it like this. Yeah. So, but if you can understand here, folks, very important this sentence. Sorry, very important this sentence. Please understand. Spring Boot applications can be packaged into a WAR file and a jar file. Spring Boot applications can be packaged into a WAR file and a jar file. So all the modules here we are developing in one Spring Boot, right? In our step 1 implementation, 3 stages of learning I told. In stage 1, you will implement this web application using the Spring Boot and Thymeleaf, right? That Spring Boot we will develop first as a WAR file. For example, if you can see here, probably you are able to see my screen. Yeah. So see here, Spring Boot application. Guys, can you please mute yourself? Yeah. So I'm taking out the option to unmute yourself. If you have any question, then just raise.
Sir, what is the duration of the course?
The duration of the course is 90 days. Duration of the course is 90 days. Okay. Now see here the target. Here we will implement. Here we will get the target as a WAR file. Here we will get the application target as a WAR file. So that WAR file contains. All the classes, all the things what we have implemented, all the things like UI, all the things. If you can see, there is a lot of static pages, and if you can see, there is a UI as well, like JSPs. In this project, taken the JSPs, but for us we will take the Thymeleaf, not JSP. Here for this project I have taken JSP, but for our implementation we will take the Thymeleaf. This is a hospital administration application, but we're gonna implement the retail e-commerce. So both are two different concepts, but I just would like to showcase you. So what I'm telling is here, first we will create the Spring Boot application and then package it as a WAR file. Okay, then later we will convert this entire Spring Boot application to microservices, right? When it is converting to the microservices, then the packaging is a jar file. Packaging meaning the build of it. Once you build the application, what you will get out of it? Jar file or WAR file. See, this is a jar file. Every microservices packaging will be the jar file, and every monolithic application, meaning the huge application with all the modules inside it, that is a WAR file. So here you will understand two packaging structures. One is the jar file, second one is the WAR file. Now here we will discuss what is there in the WAR file and what is there in the jar file. Internally we will see, internals of it we will see, so that you will understand here Spring Boot application with all the modules inside a single WAR file we are implementing first, right? But while converting it into a microservice, everyone is following a jar structure. Why, sir? Why it is everyone is following here it as a jar, whereas why here we are using it as a WAR? Why we are, while converting it into a microservices, we are using it as a jar? Why can't we use it as a WAR? Yes, we can happily use it as a WAR, but why we are not using it as a jar? Because the microservices doesn't have the microservices no need to have the view capabilities, right? View capabilities. Whereas here the monolithic application with all the modules inside in it, we will gonna implement have a view capability. Okay, however, you will understand this difference and all going forward. Okay, at this moment I don't want to dig into your confusion state, but the here the content is application in packaging internals we will discuss. Here packaging internals will discuss, meaning somewhere you will get the connected to what we're gonna do, meaning the Spring Boot application we will implement initially WAR file, and we convert the Spring Boot application into microservices, which are the jar files, and later on we will manage these microservices with the other ecosystem components, Spring Cloud components. Mostly those we use them as a jar files. So we need to now understand the difference between that WAR and jar file, right? Okay, so most of you guys are asking about the detailed notes and how it will be prepared and all right. So I already have created a detailed notes and everything. Just you need to go and then get it. For example, here if you can see, just I would like to showcase something. As you are asking about the notes and all out of curiosity, see this. The notes is already prepared. For example, I said design consideration, bill of material pattern, right? So if you can see what is the bill of material pattern, the design considerations and all I already have given. For example, microservices design considerations. So in the design consideration section of it, you can see the first thing is bill of materials pattern. So what I mean to say is, what see this bill of materials pattern, Marvin bill of materials pattern. So with a neat explanation, right, with one problem and with one solution, we will understand the bill of material pattern. See this? And there is a concept called package by layer, package by application package by layer, and application package by feature. What we need to use, right? So all these things we'll discuss, design considerations, all these things we'll discuss, folks. Okay, as why I go to there, because as one of you asked, so that's the reason I shown there. However, the notes is already uploaded to a classroom. Once you pay the fee and then once you confirm to this batch, you will be added to this classroom so that you will get the access for this material. For example, see this wireframes. So static pages first we will take. That static pages will convert into the dynamic pages like JSPs or time-leaf pages we will convert. So wireframes also already there, and course content is already there. source code repository where you can find the source code is already there, right? So Docker, Spring Cloud, Spring Boot, all the materials I uploaded, all the materials I already have uploaded. Okay, fine. So don't worry about the material and all. It's already uploaded. PDF version of the materials uploaded. You can go and then download from there once you add it. However, now see, now the next concept is what, Spring Boot auto configuration. This is the heart of the Spring Boot. I said, if you don't attend this session, don't attend, right? Meaning if you miss this attending the session, right, then no need to attend, because very, very important, the initial crucial, folks, listen carefully. Now the market is very good. Market is very, very good. Yesterday we have seen the survey and all, right? The fact is what, 100% hike, you are 100% hike giving by the organizations nowadays. For example, your cities is 4 lakhs, your experience is 2 years. If you switch the company, for sure you will get 10 lakhs. But the condition is what? But the condition is cutting edge technology. Your profile should have a cutting edge technology. What is now cutting edge technologies? Spring Boot, microservices, Docker, Kubernetes, right? Spring Cloud, right? So these are what the cutting edge technologies nowadays everyone is using. If you have the cutting edge technology in your profile, you will be valued 100%. Now, once upon a time, 2015, 2014, 2013, 30% hike, 40% hike. If anyone got a 40% hike, he will be seen like anything. But nowadays, things changed. HRs are happily giving 100% hike, 200% hike also they are giving, but they want you with the cutting edge technology, right? In earlier days, HRs are really tried to give only 30 to 35% of the CTC hike, but nowadays they're happily providing the 100%, 200% hikes also. Why? Because if you have a cutting edge technology, that cutting edge technology will be helpful for the business growth. That means using a Spring, you will develop one application for 1 week. Using Spring Boot, you can develop the same application within a 1 day. You understand, right? 40 hours of your work will be reduced to only 8 hours of work. So in 40 hours of work, you will develop only one feature called login using Spring, but using Spring Boot, using in 8 hours only, you can develop the login implementation. Registration, you are doing registration feature you are implementing, user registration, right? User registration you are implementing. That might take 1 week to implement, including testing using a Spring framework. But the same, including testing, you can complete it in a single day using the Spring Boot. What are the advantages of it now? Productivity. Your productivity has been increased like anything with the cutting edge technology. Obviously, business growth also will be there, right? When your productivity increased, business growth will be there. Earlier, if you work for 1 week, okay, probably here I will write some statistics to make your meaning, to grab your attention to understand the importance of it. Earlier, using Spring, for example, user management or user registration feature, just assume earlier to implement user registration system using Spring, you have taken 40 hours, meaning 1 week, right? Every day 8 hours, meaning 40 hours you have taken. But now using Spring Boot, you can implement the same in a 8 hours. In a 8 hours. 8 hours. So what will happen now? This is 1 day. 1 week of effort changed to just 1 day, right? That means earlier 40 hours you are doing only registration, right? The clients are unwilling to give you the billing, meaning good billing. Probably they might have given $25 per hour, but nowadays $130 per hour they are paying, folks. You can't believe. $130, $120 per hour they are paying. See, where is this $25? Where is this $120? Have you seen the difference? Where the difference came? Productivity. Earlier, you have delivered the product, entire product in 6 months, or maybe you can say 2 years. But in Spring Boot, you are developing the product within 6 months. Same product you are developing within 6 months. Customer is so happy. Earlier, he has to wait till 2 years, but now he has to wait for just 6 months. In the 6 months, as we are following the agile methodology, every stage of the development, you know what is happening and what you are delivering. That's where the cutting edge technology, and hence he is happy to pay, right? So earlier 2 years it took to give the product to him, where he just given the billing of $25. But now just 6 months we are taking to deliver the entire product, the same product, or down the line maybe 6 to 9 months, I could say. But the billing he is giving $120 per hour. See how effectively the business growth has been added, right? So with this business growth, what's the problem for them to give? Earlier they have given you, assume 25 rupees. Now they will give you 50 rupees. What's the problem for them? They even can give you 80 rupees, right? They even can give you 100 rupees, guys. 20 rupees they can see the profit, but $20 they can, of course, 20 rupees. What I mean to say is, earlier your salary is 25 rupees. Now they can give you the salary of 100 rupees, because they are getting more than that, right? They are getting a lot on you. So they don't hesitate to give you the good packages nowadays, because they will definitely get a good package or good billing on you. Why? Because you have the cutting edge technology. That is the difference, guys. I hope you got the importance of the cutting edge technologies, right? So that's how nowadays the packages are more. Use packages. If you know Spring Boot microservices and Docker, you will be paid like anything. Okay, however, let's go back to the content. Yes, the next, what you will see the Spring Boot auto configuration. This is the heart of the Spring Boot. This is the heart of the Spring Boot, right? Without the auto configuration, there is no concept of Spring Boot. Without the auto configuration, there is no concept of Spring Boot. Here you will face a lot of interview questions, not one, not two, maybe 10 interview questions. If the interviewer is like me, I can ask 10 questions from this single concept. That much of importance of this auto configuration is. Entire Spring, now I have, now we discussed a few points, right? So far, cutting edge technology, business growth, speed of development, speed of delivery, especially 40 hours work, you can reduce to 8 hours work. Why? How you have reduced this 40 hours work to 8 hours work? Because of this beautiful auto configuration concept. Beautiful auto configuration. You no need to do anything. Everything will be taken care by the Spring Boot. You no need to take anything. Everything will be taken care by the Spring Boot. You just let it know your opinion. It will form its own opinion. That means you just let the Spring Boot know, hey, Spring Boot, I want a web application. You tell to Spring Boot, I want a web application. Then Spring Boot will form its opinion. Spring Boot will form its opinion, and it will give, say, Spring boot web is the starter it will give. Spring boot web starter it will give us, which will gives you all the web application capabilities. For example, you can ask, hey, Spring Boot, give me the database capabilities. So it will form its opinion. It will form its opinion, and then it will gives you Spring boot starter JPA. I'm sorry, I have written here wrongly. Spring boot starter web. Spring boot starter web. Here, Spring boot starter JPA. What do you understand from this one? You are just asking it, hey, Spring Boot, give me the database. it is farming its opinion. It is giving already available configuration to you. You no need to do anything, just use it. That means what? Spring Boot is already a cooked bowl. You need to go and then you need to put your food in your plate. You no need to, but in the Spring, you have to cook everything, right? You have to take the materials. For example, you have to take the rice, you have to take the whatever the ingredients required to complete your food. Then all the things you have to take in Spring. But in Spring Boot, you no need to do anything. It is just providing a starters. Like when you go to hotel, what you will do? The server will give you a menu, right? The menu is available with the already cooked items. You just order it from the menu and then take it. You just order it from the menu and then take it. What do you understand? When you are doing your lunch or dinner, whatever your breakfast maybe at home, what we will do? Everything we will cook, right? The materials, whatever required ingredients and all we will take and then we will cook. But when you go to hotel, right, when you ordered something, they will give you readily. Meaning what? They already have done that cooking process. That's what the same Spring Boot will do. If you ask a Spring Boot, give me web application, it already have configured inside in it. It will give you, hey, this is the what you want. You can use it. And if you ask the Spring Boot, hey, Spring Boot, give me database. Yes, it will give you this already cooked food. Hey, this is your Spring Boot database configuration. You go and use it, right? So that's what. Sorry. So probably right now you might understand the meaning of this auto configuration. Very, very, very important. Without auto configuration, there is no concept of Spring Boot. Spring Boot auto configure. Spring Boot becomes, the primary development platform for 85% of the organizations. Why? Because we can develop the applications very fast using Spring Boot. How we can develop? Because Spring Boot have a auto configuration. Everything has been there built in Spring Boot. Whatever required, it's already there built in Spring Boot. Just we need to use it. Readily available food, already everything cooked. You just need to take into our bowl. That's it. Okay, how it will be and all we will see here. A 10, 15, 100 interview questions also we can ask if you would like to. Very, very important, folks. While attending the session, if you miss this one, then definitely there is no meaning for attending the Spring Boot sessions. If you miss this one, here you can see. First, we will learn convention over coding. This is a object-oriented pattern. Convention over coding or convention over configuration. This is a object-oriented pattern. How the object-oriented design pattern is using by the Spring Boot to give us the auto configuration is what we will discuss. So interviewers will ask you, what is convention over configuration? Can you please explain me the convention over configuration or convention over coding with a simple example? Or can you please write the code for C2C, convention over configuration? Right? Very, very important. This is a object-oriented design pattern. So this design pattern, actually we can say not design pattern, it is a design paradigm. It's a design paradigm, not pattern actually say. So this, what is paradigm, what is patterns, we'll discuss maybe going forward. But this is a design paradigm, object-oriented design paradigm. Using that, we will develop our Spring is internally using this object-oriented design paradigm called convention over configuration, and then giving us the auto configuration. There is a lot of discussion. This entire discussion will take 1 week for us, folks. It will take 1 week for us to understand the auto configuration of the Spring Boot. Imagine how many interview questions we may get. Lot of interview questions. Interviewer will ask you, hey, Spring is giving all the things, right? I don't want to use these things. I don't want that thing. How can I exclude something from an auto configuration, right? Where the auto configuration will be initiated, or how it will be, internal working of it. So lot of things we will discuss during understanding this auto configuration. Just now I created one simple Spring Boot project, right? Just to show you something, right? I have, see this, I just have created a simple Spring Boot project, but it already given with a lot of jar files, right? There if you can see spring-boot-starter, right? There you can see spring-boot-starter-web, right? And there you can see a spring-boot.jar. See, again, it have a lot of things inside in it, right? See, all the classes, right? All the things are here. Here, it will use convention over configuration, or convention over coding paradigm. What is that, sir? We don't know. Don't worry. I'll explain. Don't worry. I'll explain. See this, but you can see logging framework, security, right? And if you can see, scroll up, see this flyway, and if you can scroll up, see this embedded Tomcat, and somewhere you can see the RabbitMQ, right? Lot of things were already inbuilt or there. See Liquibase, right? JPA, Hibernate, right? All the JSON, all the things were already given. Just we need to know how to use already given the Spring Boot admin. See here in our application implementation, I have mentioned Spring Boot admin explicitly. Why I have mentioned Spring Boot admin? There is a meaning for it. You will learn it, and the importance of it you will see. Right? See this very important concept that we are now talking about. Spring Boot auto configuration. Understood? This is very important. Spring Boot auto configure. That is what we are talking about now. What is Spring Boot auto configuration? That is what we are now talking about. So we will understand the Spring Boot auto configuration by internally looking at this jar file and what are the components it is providing to us. There is a convention over configuration approach, right? What does that mean? You will understand by looking into this jar file. However, don't worry, in-depth knowledge, in-depth concepts we'll discuss while happening this auto configuration session. Okay. Next thing is, okay, Spring is providing the auto configuration, sir. Can we edit those auto configurations? Alternating the Spring Boot configurations. Can we edit the auto configurations? Can we edit the inbuilt configurations? You are saying Spring Boot is coming up with everything as inbuilt, but if you want to customize it, can we customize it? Yes, we can customize it. How we can customize is what we will discuss in the altering the Spring Boot configuration section. Okay, then next what we'll discuss about the understanding the connection pooling. This is very important. This connection pooling is very important to understand, because interviewers will ask you, hey, what is the default connection pooling will be given by the Spring Boot? So Spring Boot by default will gives us the 10 connection objects. So will those 10 connection objects are good enough to handle 1000 users, 100 users, 5000 users? Are they good enough to handle? If not, how do we do the connection pooling? First of all, what is connection pooling? All these things we'll discuss. Okay, folks, that's all for today. And if anyone is interested, go and start your registration process. And tomorrow, let us discuss the rest of the content. And day after tomorrow onwards, let us start the Spring Core. Okay, so go and tomorrow I will complete this remaining content discussion. There is so much of content I have drafted. So from tomorrow, again tomorrow, and then day after tomorrow, we'll complete the entire content discussion, like Spring Boot content, microservices content, and then Spring Cloud content, and then Spring Security content, Docker content, and then the tools that we're gonna use throughout this course. All those things let us discuss in coming up 1 or 2 sessions. Coming up 2 to 3 sessions, we'll discuss all these things. Okay, if you are interested, go and then start your payment process. Any questions? Yes, content will be shared to you guys. You can see this content in our DURGASOFT website. I will share this content to our management. I could have shared it yesterday, but I am adding more content here. Where I'm adding is, there is a content, Spring REST controllers, right? Here I'm, building the Spring REST controller, right? So here I'm adding a more content. I will add that more content because interviewers are asking now, how do we versioning a Spring REST or Spring REST APIs? Basically, how do we versioning the REST APIs is the question they are asking. So for that, you need to understand the versioning and then content negotiation concept. So that I am adding here. So, and they are asking, how do we document the REST APIs? For that, we will use the Swagger and then Open API. So like that, whatever the latest interview questions or the market is expecting, right? With respect to that, I am preparing the content. So updated content you will see in the DURGASOFT website. Yes, that's what, see this testing of the web applications using the JUnit. Here we will use what? Unit testing and then integration testing. Both we will discuss, like JUnit with Marketo and all. Okay, right. Yes, web services concept will be, web services in the sense RESTful services concept will be covered in the Spring Boot. Is AOP is also covered? Yes, AOP will be covered when we are discussing the global exception handling, right? Global exception handling we will do, which is a very famous interview question nowadays. At that moment, AOP is required for us, so AOP will be discussed. Any paid software will be used in this course? No, everything is an open source. Is Spring Cloud will be covered? Yes, Spring Cloud will be covered. That's what I'm telling you, Spring Cloud will be covered. If you can see the, that's what, attend one more demo, you guys will get the clarity. What are these? Gateway, Zipkin, registry, configuration management server, right? What are all these? These are all the things we will implement as part of the Spring Cloud. Spring Cloud will be there. Without Spring Cloud, I think we cannot achieve this enterprise level of, or it is difficult to manage the microservices. Okay. Yes, our one, as soon as you done your registrations, our team, backend team will send you the links and all, and also they will send, they will send the details of you to me. Then I will add you to this classroom to get the material access. So I will add you here so that you will get the material access. So all the softwares, whatever required, course content, materials, everything was there here. Okay, fine. So does tomorrow class will be demo class? Yes, folks, we have to complete the course content, right? So tomorrow also let us discuss more course content. Just now we discussed about till connection pooling. Tomorrow we'll discuss these profiles. Here we will get 2 interview questions, and we'll discuss the data access layer. Here we will get 1 interview question, and then we'll discuss about the service layer implementation. Here we will get 3 interview questions. What are they? So like that, let us discuss the course content completely with respect to the interview questions, whatever are asking in the market now. So once this is completed, then we will start our classes starts with the Spring Core. So this content discussion will take 2 days or 2 to 3 days, coming up 2 to 3 days. So whoever would like to attend, please attend, and then whoever feel it as helpful for you, go and then register. We'll do the production grade application development here using the Spring Boot, microservices, and Spring Cloud. Yep. Thank you so much, folks. I understood so many of questions you have. Let us discuss all those questions one by one in the next classes. Yes, we'll also get trained for interviews 100%. That's what I'm telling you. So when we are discussing about any of the concept, I'm discussing the interview question of the concept as well. Concept wise interview questions I'm discussing here. The similar fashion we'll discuss while session is happening as well. So concept-wise interview question, and then concept-wise it's discussion answer. That all the things I will prepare while the session is happening, and this entire material will be uploaded to your workspace, your classroom. It will be uploaded. I will create one folder called interview questions. There we will upload the interview questions that we were discussed during the session happening. Okay. Yeah. Thank you so much, folks. Yes. Is it necessary to learn Spring before going to Spring Boot? Yes, 100% it is necessary to learn Spring before going to Spring Boot. But if you don't learn the Spring before going to Spring Boot, also fine, because I'm going to start Spring Core for first 2 weeks of time. In that you can understand the Spring working capability, how it will work, and all various concepts of the Spring, and all we'll discuss in the Spring Core. Okay. Admin and role-based authentication covered. Yes, not only role-based authentication, folks, it's more than that. If you can see the security content, see this. I believe you are able to see the security content, right? See, it's not a simple authentication and authorization. See, RBAC, role-based access control. Not only role-based, we also will see the attribute-based access control, method level security, multi-factor authentication, HMAC, data integrity, OAuth 2, OpenID, filters in Spring Security, password management, user management, right? And then security audit report, vulnerabilities discussion, TLS, SSL, lot of things we'll discuss. Okay. Yeah. Okay, folks. Thank you so much. And see you tomorrow for the coming up 2 to 3 demos. Attend, and then we'll complete the course content discussion, right? During the content discussion, so many things we'll discuss, right? So if you're really interested, go and then complete your registration process. Thank you so much, folks. See you tomorrow at the same time, that is 7 a.m.